And I will now turn the meeting over to Kathy Humphrey.
Okay. Sorry, unmute. All right. Sorry about that. Thank you. So at the first meeting of the year, the board elects the chair and vice chair. So I would now like to proceed with the election of the chair, which is erroneously noted in the agenda as agenda item 4.2, but this is going to be agenda item 4.1. And once the chair is elected, the newly elected chair will take over to chair the rest of the meeting. I would like to call for nominations for the position of the chair for the Police Services Board for 2023. Yeah, and I don't have anybody as my view. Okay, and Tony?
Thank you. I would put forward and nominate Karen Redmond for the chair position.
Thank you. And can I get a seconder? It's Karen Schnarr. Okay, and Karen Schnarr. So we have a motion on the table to nominate Karen Redmond for the position of chair for the Waterloo Region Police Services Board for 2023, moved by Tony and seconded by Karen. Are you all in favor? Okay. All in favor, so that is carried, and Karen Redmond is now the chair for 2023. And can I now have a motion to close the nomination for the position of chair? Ian, did he have his hand up first? And Sandy second? Okay. So can we move that the nomination of the chair of police services be closed? Are all in favor? That is carried. Without further nominations, Karen Redmond, are you willing to accept the nomination for chair?
I am.
And that's good. With her acceptance, Karen Redmond is declared and re-elected as chair of the Waterloo Regional Police Services and will now conduct the election of the vice chair. Thank you.
So thank you all for your vote of support, and thank you very much, Kathy, for conducting that. Ian, are you putting your hand up to nominate somebody for vice chair, or you have a comment?
No, I am at the appropriate time.
Okay, so we would now open nominations for the position of vice chair. Ian, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Chair Redmond. Congratulations. I'd like to move Dr. Karen Schnarr for the role of vice chair for 2023.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Karen Quigley Hobbs. Doug, are you voting or are you thirding it?
I was seconding it.
Okay.
I can be seconder to the seconder. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further comments, Karen, I'm assuming you would accept this role if nominated. Okay. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Could I have a motion to move that nominations closed for vice chair of WRPS? Moved by Sandy, seconded by Ian. All those in favor? That is carried. Colleagues, I'm just going to take the chair's prerogative and reflect for a moment, and then I'll punt it over to Karen Schnarr if she wants to say something. That this has been unprecedented times. We have an outstanding police service. The leadership has been amazing. Both our civilian and uniformed officers do a wonderful job of making sure we feel safe and are safe. It is a distinct privilege to serve in this capacity, and I'm honored to take the chair position for another year. Karen, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Redmond. And just briefly, thank you to my colleagues for allowing me to continue on in this role for another year. I think it's going to be a fun year. We're already seeing great things happening under the leadership of our new chief. And it's a privilege, as always, to serve on this board and in the position of vice chair to continue to support strong and effective policing in our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is a traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people of Canada. So again, thank you, colleagues. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we have no recommendations coming from closed. We do have a delegation, so I would like to welcome Mark Eagers, President, Waterloo Regional Police Association. Mark, as always, it's lovely to see you.
Thank you, Chair Redmond, and good morning. Congratulations, Chair Redmond and Vice Chair Starr. Excellent news. And I'd like to thank the Waterloo Regional Police Services Board for this opportunity to provide a deputation on behalf of the Waterloo Regional Police Association. The WRPA is the elected unifying voice of the over 1,100 sworn and civilian personnel who proudly dedicate their lives to serving all communities within Waterloo Region. And I'm truly honored to serve as president and advocate on behalf of our members' interests. The recent changes within the police services senior leadership team present an important opportunity for the association, service, and police services board to enhance relations towards the common goal of aligning ourselves with other comparable services throughout the province for the betterment of public safety, as well as member safety and wellness. As this police services board debates the 2023 budget scenarios, I would ask that you please keep this presentation and current state of public safety in the region in mind. The crux of my deputation will center on the region's continued rate of growth, increases in crime, appropriate member support and workloads, and the associated human resource challenges that we face to provide adequate police services for a safe and desirable region. Thankfully, Waterloo Region is a highly sought after and prosperous area of the province. This is vocally touted by the media and local politicians, and it comes with a certain level of expectation from those choosing to live, work, and enjoy the area. It's no surprise within our jurisdiction, we have 3 major post-secondary education campuses, which draws a transient population of over 50,000 students annually. This combination is unique to a region of our size, and it makes it especially challenging to deploy resources and manage the often unsanctioned events that can occur off campus 9 months of the year. Our region is expanding twofold, urban and rural, and they both have their complexities. Urban expansion and its associated call demand is soaring and unrelenting. Call queues are consistently high and rolled over from shift to shift. There are simply not enough uniformed officers to respond to calls for service, which causes unbearable caseloads for members, while also undermining the community's faith that the police will respond in a timely fashion when needed. Behind the scenes and often overlooked is our civilian communications personnel, who are also understaffed. They not only receive calls for service from the public, but they also receive complaints from the public when officers can't respond in a timely fashion. They are often a lifeline to officers on the road, but if they are understaffed, it compromises officer and public safety. At the same time, rural growth is occurring at a rapid pace. Yet we are still servicing these areas with the same number of resources as was allocated in the 1980s. It's 40 years ago. And you just think about how much has changed in that time. It's no wonder this is causing significant impacts on officer safety and wellness. When backup is needed, it likely needs to come from the nearest urban areas, which are often several minutes away. This can result in stress and anxiety when our members find themselves faced with unpredictable circumstances. Our rural communities have made it clear that they want a greater emphasis on public safety. In the latest municipal election, it was one of the main political platform topics, and all candidates who supported enhancing the police presence in these growing parts of the region ended up being elected. Concerningly, Statistics Canada data shows that in 2021, Waterloo Region experienced its highest total crime and severe crime rates when compared to the last 5 years. Our violent crime severity index also rose by 2%, the 6th highest of Ontario's 12 largest municipal police services. and over 10 points higher than the provincial median. Unsurprisingly, this has related in caseloads becoming unmanageable, both on the front line and investigative units. These caseloads dramatically increase the risk of burnout and exposure to these excessive traumatic events. The complexity of crimes is also increasing. Cyber and technology-centered crimes are becoming more prevalent. In addition to requiring specialized resources and skill sets, they often also need at least 2 officers assigned to such cases with further dedicated time to complete an investigation. Compared to the 12 other large municipal police services in Ontario, WRPS has the lowest weighted clearance rates for total and violent crime, and is also well below national weighted clearance rates. In 2021, WRPS's total weighted clearance rate was 28, down from 32.8 in 2020, and the weighted clearance rate for violent crime was 28, down from 53.4 in 2020. This decline has been attributed to resource challenges in the investigative service division, as well as workload demand per officer, which again highlights the greater risk that our members could be prone to higher rates of burnout and possible escalating mental health related challenges. An increase in staffing is required. Put another way, we're in crisis, and we desperately need more human resources to protect the ones we have. The wellness of our members must be paramount to ensure a healthy and reliable workforce. The WRPS staffing data, as presented in the 2023 draft operating capital budget document provided to the association by the service, shows that in 2021, Waterloo Region had 120 officers per 100,000 population. Cop the pop. This is 12% below the average Big 12 rate, 28% below the median provincial rate, and over 30% below the national rate. In both loud and quiet ways, we are experiencing the impacts of this chronic staffing shortage, and it simply can't continue. Unfortunately, the recent tragic murders of 5 officers since September is a dark reminder of the dangers our members face every day. It further emphasizes the need for committed, safe staffing levels. The public has also taken notice of these challenges, which negatively impacts our ability to build trust and confidence. The lack of resources and staffing is so evident that our frontline officers and communication personnel are taking the brunt of the public's displeasure when they're acting with them on a daily basis. This weighs on member morale and their desire to do the job. Traffic enforcement is one of the main issues that gets reported as a concern from the community. If they don't see our personnel monitoring school zones or maintaining a presence on our streets to deter dangerous driving, quite frankly, they question what their tax dollars are being used for. WRPS's staffing levels are so low that for the most part, proactive traffic enforcement is non-existent. This further erodes the public confidence in the police, and we already have an uphill battle. In comparison to local public safety partners in fire and EMS, especially in fire, our police are not keeping pace with human resource growth. There is notable difficulty attracting and retaining sworn and civilian personnel, which is just exacerbating the issue. On top of that, members feel immense pressure to do whatever it takes to live up to management's expected service delivery levels. But there just aren't enough members to successfully achieve these outcomes. With a noted history of the past police services boards not keeping up with adequate staffing to reflect the changes we've experienced over the years, the deficiencies will eventually need to be caught up on, and this will become increasingly difficult as the gaps continue to get bigger and more costly. It is therefore the recommendation of the WRPA that the Waterloo Regional Police Services Board seek to approve budget draft scenario number 3, expansion with 55 new FTEs without salary gapping, a budget increase of 13.43%. This would bring WRPS up to the 2021 Big 12 rate, though we would still be far below the 2021 national and provincial rates of police officers per 100,000. Draft scenarios 1 and 4, especially number 4, with 0 expansion, simply cannot be considered as they are unrealistic options given the ongoing challenges. During the last Police Service Board meeting, I commend this current Police Services Board and Chief Crowell for recognizing our current staffing shortages, and now is the time to fix it. Our members cannot wait 3 years to get up to complement. we need a large complement in this yearly budget to guarantee the safety of the public and our members. And it is not up to this WSB to worry if the WRPS can train such a large immediate number. I am confident that Chief Corral and his team can get that done. And lastly, the sworn and civilian police personnel who continue to dedicate their professional lives to upholding public safety across Waterloo Region are asking for the support of their Police Services Board to begin properly investing in human resources so that all members are best positioned to meet the rightfully high expectations of the public. As WRPA president, I do not take lightly my responsibility to advocate strongly for the collective rights and interests of our members. And I want to publicly thank them in this forum for all that they do 24/7, 365 days a year. Everything I've highlighted today comes down to the need for more human resources supported by a dedicated investment. This must be an integral part of our path forward. Without additional personnel, we will continue to be stuck in a cycle where rates of burnout go up, mental health and wellness declines, more members need to go off on leave, and ultimately, our ability to effectively uphold public safety within the communities we're all proud to call home is called into question. I thank you very kindly for your time today and attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eagers. Any questions from the board? Karen Schnarr, please go ahead.
Thank you. And I thought, thank you for your presentation. I thought it was excellent. And I particularly want to note that you highlighted both needs on the uniform and the civilian side as well, because I agree with you, particularly in terms of the example you used of communication staffing. A question for you, because I agree with you. We have an outstanding training complement and even recruiting complement within WRPS. My question is, let's say we approve that the scenario you're recommending. There are a lot of other police services out there. I know Brampton was talking about hiring 70 new uniform plus, so I just wondered if you had any just quick thoughts about, what could we do as a service to recruit people in, to come here to the Kitchener, Cambridge area, as opposed to, Brampton or Toronto or London, because that's the, part of the trick is how do we, we can allocate the resources, how do we actually bring people here so that we can start the process to bring staffing up to a more advantageous level for our the current folks that we have working in the WRPS, to give them better services and to meet some of the demand in our communities.
Thank you very much for your question. There's no question there's police services across Canada that are needing personnel. I know RCMP needs 3,000, OPP needs 1,000. I think Toronto is the same. So that's a very good question. Of course, there are, and it has been done nationally in different services. There are monetary bonuses, which are certainly an incentive for people. But quite frankly, I think it also comes down to our collective agreement, which is very important. We have an excellent collective agreement with excellent benefits, certainly on a provincial level. I think that's a very big incentive for people to come to Waterloo Region. And I hate to pound it, but it goes back to staffing levels as well. So if we don't have the proper staffing levels and they look at the workload demand, that's a deterrent, quite frankly. And it comes to a work-life balance. And what we're noticing in our members, that seems to be a huge emphasis, is work-life balance, almost more than monetary. But that's what we're certainly seeing with our younger members. So I think any incentives on that aspect would certainly be great for us.
Thank you. Doug, go ahead.
Well, just very quickly, I appreciate your presentation to the board today. Are you planning in a public venue to come to regional council to make the same kind of presentation?
I would be more than happy to. Yes. Yeah. If I thought and conversations with yourselves or anyone else, if it would benefit our membership, I'd be more than happy to come to region.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I see no further questions. So Mark, as always, great to see you. Thank you for bringing a cogent, focused report forward on behalf of your membership. And again, we share the values and the esteem that you've expressed to the membership of WRPS. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
So colleagues, the next agenda item is a consent agenda, and we have items 9.12 through 9.13. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any member would like to take out and put as part of the regular agenda to discuss? I see. Oh, Sandy, go ahead. Are you moving it or do you have a question?
I'm happy to move it, and I also wanted to welcome Megan.
Thank you. Okay, Tony?
I would second it, but also Sandy beat me to it. I just thought we should at least recognize Megan and the appointment rather than just a straightforward consent.
Thank you very much. I was actually going to save the comments till the end, but maybe I'll make it now just because I can. And that is, I would really like to welcome Megan Martin as our new executive assistant for WRPS, and acknowledge and thank Kathy Umphrey, who has done yeoman's job since September in making sure that we continue to have timely meetings, good information, and as we move forward. So thank you, Kathy, and welcome, Megan. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, colleagues. Business arising from the minutes, I have none. Karen Quigley-Hobbs, do you have a, oh, okay, you were applauding. So Megan, you were getting a standing O. Kathy, you as well. Correspondence, any questions about correspondence that we received? Police services reports is item 12. And Chief, do you want to introduce this?
Good morning, Chair Redmond, members of the board. Yeah, happy to introduce this item. It is more of a procedural update and an award of a contract. We just wanted to highlight, especially for our newer board members, to understand what this software solution is. And it sort of leads into the next agenda item as well. For several years, we've worked with the company Health IM that's provided our frontline officers a capacity to communicate with health services when we're apprehending people under the Mental Health Act, to have a very efficient way to communicate what has transpired, what the profile is of the individual that is being transferred to a healthcare facility. And it's a very innovative solution to rapidly transferring information, but also helping with the onboarding and offboarding of individuals into the healthcare facility as our members transfer them into healthcare. And Waterloo Regional Police and our communities led on this path, and this is taken across the country as an innovative approach to this manner. So the report before you today just speaks to the award of this contract to Health IM for the next 3 years. And I'm just briefly going to turn it over to Ms. Kirsten Hand, who can just speak to the procurement and seeking your approval for the recommendation.
Welcome, Kirsten.
Hello, thank you. So we did do a tender, however, only one vendor supplied a proposal. So in accordance with our procurement bylaw, we need to come to the board to get approval to award the contract. And I'll just note that all dollars are budgeted for as well. Thank you.
So thank you, colleagues. So this does require a motion to approve this award to assisted mental health screener, and the estimated cost is $163,158 plus all applicable taxes. And this is from March 4th, 2023 to March 3rd, 2026. If I could have a mover, Ian.
Yes, I'm happy to move it. And after we're done this, I have a related question on procurement.
Okay, thank you. It's moved by Ian, seconded by Karen Schnarr. All those in favor? That is carried. Ian, your question?
Yeah, through you, Chair Redmond, either to Kirsten or to the chief. It goes back to some of the consent agenda tenders. And I guess the one question which was, and it's not specific to one, but on several of them, the gap between the winning bid and maybe the highest bid. In one case, I think the winning bid was 16,000. The highest bid was 172,000. Now, again, I don't pretend to understand how that would happen, but when there's that big a spread, I guess it just raises the question for me, and there's a couple of them. Is that just not understanding on their side, or is there a misunderstanding of what the tender is allowing? And it really, the question is to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples. And I had some experience in public works on road projects in a past life 100 years ago. Really important that it just I meant to ask it in those that earlier part of the agenda, but that really kind of caught my eye that there's several of them that are not even in the same, they're not even in the same province, let alone the same area code.
Who would like to take that on? Kirsten, is that a question for you?
Please, yeah.
Yeah, so just, I mean, it could be the way that the vendor has interpreted how they would provide the services to us that is a more costly method in terms of what's going into their bid. It definitely could mean that perhaps they didn't understand some of the components. Some of these were tenders, so they just submit a price, so we don't know a lot of information as to what went into what their assumptions perhaps could have been. Those are some of the reasons that I could think of that might
Just
create that spread.
One follow-up. So, we award the contract. Is there an opportunity for bidders that don't, and I'm thinking more in terms of there's lots of procurement in the region, cities, governments, all levels, certainly WRPS. Is there an opportunity for those that were unsuccessful to have a conversation around why were we, so that they can learn for next time? I'm thinking particularly for a small and medium-sized business, so that they understand where they may have to improve if they're going to be able to do business with WRPS.
Yeah, for sure. We do debriefs with unsuccessful vendors quite often.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Colleagues, the next item is actually for information, but I would have to tell you that it's a crisis call diversion program, and I think that it's one of the seminal demonstrations of how really progressive this police service is. So I don't know, Chief, do you want to kick it off?
Thanks, Chair Rubin. I will be brief. I'm very happy. We thought this was timely for the board and the community just to have an update in terms of our total commitment to innovation and mental health services and our collaborative programming with the Canadian Mental Health Association and other partners. So I'm very proud to turn over the reins to Inspector Beth Houston, and also Jeff Stanlick is also here today to provide some comments and some clarity about our programming, about the crisis call diversion program, and a holistic presentation. So Beth, if you could also, just in your remarks, introduce Jeff Stanlick and just provide an introduction in our partnership. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chief. And good morning, Chair Redmond and members of the board. Happy to be back with you this morning and to provide you a bit of a state of the union of crisis call diversion. So as the Chief mentioned, with me is Jeff Stanlick, and he is the Director of Services for CMHA Waterloo Wellington. And we have a very excellent collaborative working relationship with Jeff and his team. And also helping me today is going to be Amanda, who you are very familiar with from Strategic Services for the statistical end. So Amanda is my tech guru today. So she's going to help me make it through the slides. So if we could get the presentation shared, Amanda, I'd appreciate that. So as the Chief mentioned, I think I'm going to give a brief reminder of where we have come from in terms of mental health response in the region. It's actually been over a decade now that we have had some sort of specialized mental health response in the region. In 2012, sorry, Amanda, can you go to the next one? Sorry, thanks. In 2012, we saw the creation of the Specialized Crisis Team Program, which was aimed at improving access to community mental health and addiction services, both in the urban and the rural areas. And then in 2017, we transitioned from the SCT program to the Integrated Mobile Police and Crisis Model, which is IMPACT, which you're familiar with. And this program saw mental health and addiction clinicians embedded into our 3 major divisions and had them available to attend calls for service with our members. And it has been a very successful program. We also then recognized it was time to evolve again. Next slide, please, Amanda. So in January of last year, we submitted an application to the Community Safety and Policing Grant and found out at the end of April of last year that we had been very successful with the funding that we received. That money helps to fund the work of the Community Engagement and Wellbeing Branch, and as well was earmarked for the creation of the Crisis Call Diversion Program. Internally, we put together a working group comprised of leaders from our communication branch, finance, facilities, strat services, and IT, so we could figure out exactly what this needed to look like and figure out how we could get this done in a very aggressive timeline. I would like to acknowledge the leadership for this project has come from Staff Super Goodman, as well as Superintendent Fenton. Their leadership has been absolutely vital in getting this up and running and has helped drive the work being accomplished by our working group. So many, many thanks to them. From the bottom of the slide there, you can see from our stats from the impact proper team or our typical impact program that it's become a very, very valuable resource in terms of our daily work. In 2022, they were dispatched over 1,200 times, so that's impressive. Next slide, please, Amanda. So knowing that we already had this proven collaborative working relationship with CMHA, it only made sense to expand and evolve that partnership. So the CCD program sees a CMHA impact professional embedded into our communication center. They have a private office in the comm center that they work out of, which is important to note because they are CMHA employees, not WRPS employees. Right now, during the pilot phase, CCD is operating Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. till midnight, and then from 11 to 11 on the weekends. And those are not random hours. The scheduling is data informed to increase the probability of reaching our diversion targets. And these hours are what most closely aligns with the times of highest demand for impact workers on the road. Next slide, please. So the logistics of this, how this actually works. As usual, our call takers answer and screen calls coming into the comm center, and calls which we deem appropriate and meet a certain criteria are assigned to CCD program and are handled by the CMHA mental health professionals as opposed to a traditional police response. Once the call is with CCD, the worker can assist the caller by providing resource and tools, offering referrals, assisting the caller with navigating the mental health system, and offering appropriate follow-ups. And again, this ideally negates the need for our frontline police response or any interaction with the police officer. It is important to note that if any time during the conversation, the CCD worker assesses that circumstances have somehow changed and a police response is now required, the call is going to be sent back to the 911 queue for dispatch. We do have the ability to have the CCD worker remain on the line and continuing talking with the caller to help de-escalate and explain to them and talk to them about what to expect when the police arrive. So that's a successful component of the program as well. Our goal is a frontline diversion rate of 20%, and Amanda is going to be touching on the stats momentarily. Next slide. So I mentioned that calls have to satisfy some criteria in order to be deemed appropriate. I'm not going to read them to you, but you can see in the slide, this is the current list of screening criteria that we're working with. Our working group is meeting regularly and we review and evaluate the criteria and are amending things as appropriate with the goal of diverting as many calls as possible away from a traditional police response in a safe and responsible manner. Next slide. So Amanda's going to walk us through some stats of the data that we've received so far since our launch on November 7th. And then our friend Jeff Stanlick is going to share some thoughts of the CCD program from the CMHA perspective. So Amanda, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. WRPS is interested in measuring the pathways that these mental health related calls may take through CCD. There's really 5 different pathways it could take. The call could be handled exclusively by CCD on the phone with the client and resolved. Some calls may be flagged for follow-up by the CCD team. Some may be rerouted to the impact field team for mental health support. Some may be directed back to patrol, and yet others may be referred to a third party. So we're interested in tracking all 5 pathways. And you can see that since launch, the CCD team has fielded 42 calls. The success stories include this data supports that 40% were resolved exclusively by CCD on the phone with the client. There's also an added statistic. We can report 76% were resolved between the mental health teams. So in combination of CCD and impact with no officer response required. And the first bulleted point shows some of the specifics where 13 were flagged for follow-up, only 2 were rerouted to the impact field team, 10 were rerouted to patrol, and we're still ironing out some of the business intelligence behind referrals to a third party. Again, there are some success stories that indicate in the first part of January that the support provided by CCD is on the rise. So again, supporting the combined alternative response to mental health calls. We continue to monitor the proportion that they attend, similar to the impact statistics, which you may be most familiar with. So the top 2 types of calls include mentally ill and attempt suicide. And for diversion purposes, we're just seeing how closely we are getting to our targets and that those are increasing. So from here, I will pass it over to Jeff. He will have some complementary stories to share about these pathways.
Excellent. Thank you. And good morning. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to this initiative. And I'd like to begin by first really acknowledging the partnership that the Canadian Mental Health Association has with Waterloo Regional Police Service. We've worked closely, as Inspector Houston mentioned, for many years and really have a foundation of success with the Impact Service. And the relationship has made this crisis call diversion project really a natural next step in exploring innovative approaches to diverting mental health calls from police while also ensuring the best possible service for the community. Also, thank you for sharing the data. The data is always important and shows us kind of where we're at and how we're doing. And as mentioned, we're reviewing the month of November and December. Also important, and very importantly, the stories that go with this is really what hits home. And how does this translate for people who are calling and going through the crisis call diversion program? And I want to start with the first story is a call that we received. It was actually on the very first day that we launched, and it was the very first call that we received. And the call came from a cab driver who was quite upset because they had driven a senior to their destination, but the person was not able to pay for their cab ride. And so the call was transferred to our team, who quickly organized the payment, really negating that need for police response entirely. We also, being partnered in the call center there, we had the opportunity to review our electronic medical record and found this individual in our database, recognizing that they're actively an active participant of CMHA in the seniors program, which led us to connect with their worker. And surprisingly and very successfully, the worker was able to make a trip to the person's home, shortly after that on the same day, to assess their mental health in greater detail and to see how they're really doing as well. And so the senior service and impact continue to work together to support this client. The next story and final story I just want to share is we received a call from somebody who was struggling after having a baby. And the call, again, was diverted to the crisis call diversion program, where our staff provided an assessment of the individual's mental health. We also spoke with the individual's family member to make sure that the child and the individual were safe. And we were able to schedule an appointment with their family doctor in a timely way, while also providing the family doctor a copy of our assessment prior to their appointment. This presentation of this individual was really consistent with a postpartum depression and really needed mental health support, not police. And police, were not required to attend. The risks were mitigated with the appropriate follow-up and support. So again, just a couple of stories that really outlined the success that we've seen just in the first 2 months of the program. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda, and thank you, Jeff. I'm really very glad that Jeff was able to be here today to share some of those narratives with you, because I think that it is crucial to remember that although we track data and stats, this can't all be about data and stats, right? Because behind every single number is a person and a story and a family, and we can't ever lose sight of that point. So that's thanks for sharing those, Jeff. We really appreciate that. Next slide, Amanda. Just 2 more to go here. So I thought it was important to review the goals that we had set out for this program as we were creating and launching, just to make sure that we're kind of staying in line with those. And obviously the first is to screen and divert mental health related calls for service away from a traditional police response. And as you can see from today, we are certainly on our way with that goal. The second is, I think it's important to know the CCD program demonstrates our service commitment to creating alternative models of service delivery and to strive to be as efficient and modern as possible. Of course, improved outcomes for clients in the community is always a priority for us. Every call for service which ends up safely and with the appropriate connections being made is a massive win. And lastly, improved community satisfaction with police response to mental health. We are listening. We are taking safe, responsible steps in the right direction in regards to mental health response. Next one, Amanda. And so that's just a quick snapshot of our project funding. And I guess the relevant point on here to note is that grant funding allowed for CMHA to hire 3 additional full-time employees to help staff CCD. And then we'll just go to the last. So we're going to leave it at that for this morning. This program is something that we are very, very proud of, and we feel is a really positive step forward in mental health response for the community. So thanks for your time this morning, and hopefully between the whole collective of us, we can answer any questions that you might have for us. Thank you.
Very, very impressive accounting of an initiative, as you say, Beth, that goes back 10 years, which is great to know that we're continuing to move forward. And Jeff, thank you very much for adding your voice. I had sort of written in my margin third-party referral, but I think you sort of fleshed that out with some of your anecdotes. That first-person narrative is always the most powerful way to demonstrate whether or not the program is working. So thank you for that. Colleagues, any questions or comments? Again, thank you very much. Oh, Sandy, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to add my thanks to all of you for the presentation and for the work you do. I think as a community, we so often look at things that don't go well. And this is something that does go very well and is, I'm not sure if it's unique to our community. I think other communities have different iterations of it, but I do think we do it well. So thank you for highlighting it.
Chief, did you want to jump in? And I see Doug wants to make a comment or a question.
Why don't we let Mr. Craig go ahead, and then maybe I can wrap up the presentation. That'd be great. Thank you.
Super. Doug?
No, I just wanted to say that I think it's a great program, and it's one that the public, I don't think, is aware of what's happening. And I think the more we can get that out there in terms of publicizing this type of program within the Waterloo Regional Police, it benefits all of us. And it deals with critics out there also.
Chief?
Thank you. And I echo that sentiment. I just want to give credit to Staff Superintendent John Goodman and many of our members that have been committed to this partnership and the growth of it. And we're at the ground floor of continuing to innovate and to find solutions that are more broad-based and provide alternatives. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. One is we are still working with the Region of Waterloo and from alternative mental health response, conceptions, and also with paramedic services, those options. But I want to thank Jeff and your entire team and CMHA for your partnership, and we know we will continue. We will bring this back to the board with a further update later in the year to show the success and the growth and how we're adapting. But one last thing, just on this note, I will share, I received a letter of thanks yesterday which kind of ties all this together. It speaks more about the impact response, but received a letter from a woman in the community from Kitchener who spoke about a friend of hers who had checked herself out of the hospital and actually came home, but the observations were that she still had some mental health issues and she was unable to care for herself and was confused, and ultimately the police were called to respond. And so she writes, you know, 2 of the officers came to help, and eventually they also brought a mental health nurse with the impact team and paramedics. The officers and everyone who responded were very professional. They were calm, reassuring, compassionate, and very kind in their care. They went above and beyond to care for my friend and reassure her as they went. I was truly impressed. Please pass along my thanks to the officers involved. They are great representatives of your service and all police officers in general to show what true service really looks like. So again, just these are words from a community member echoing your observations about partnerships and the strength of what we can do together. And very proud of all of our team and our members that are working on these items every day. Thank you.
And I don't think it was lost, hopefully, on anybody watching this, and certainly on my colleagues on WRPS board, given that we're going to deal with budget next, that those grant dollars are significant. And none of this is free, but all of this is intentional and focused and effective outcomes and better outcomes. So thank you again for all the partnerships and the leadership from WRPS, as well as our community partners at CMHA. So thank you, colleagues. That was for information. And next we have budget 2023 operating and capital. And Chief, I think it's back over to you.
Thank you, Chair Redmond. I will be joined by Ms. Kirsten Han, and I will be sharing my screen and booting up the presentation. So thank you. I'm very pleased to be back. This is the 3rd iteration of our 2023 draft operating capital budget, and I just want to begin by thanking Director of Finance Kirsten Han, her team, and also all members across the service that have brought this into focus, and also for the direction of our board, your governance, and your insights into shaping what's being presented today. So the presentation is not long, but it does give us a step towards the next presentation as well. And knowing that some members of the committee will be joining us maybe for the first time for this iteration, we have broadened the context somewhat just to give an overview of our service and our service impacts in the community. So as you're well aware, we're living in one of the most fastest growing and rapidly diversifying regions in all of Canada. Our current population, as reported now, is just bridging just under 650,000 people. And every day our members are serving with pride and integrity. We have just under 800 sworn officers and 370 civilian members. And right now we are the 12th largest police service in Canada, the 7th largest in Ontario. And I know those of us who have lived in Waterloo region for some decades might not take into account the impact of the growth that we have faced as a collective. And so that sort of lends itself to our conversation today. I just want to pay some notice to the increases in service demands that we have seen. So last year in 2022, we saw a total occurrence total of 324,000 occurrences. And this was a 6.1% increase from 2021, where we saw just over 305,000 occurrences and calls for service. And the issues that we deal with on a daily basis are wide-ranging and comprehensive and complex, as trying to solve problems and assist our community to solve their problems. And what I'm going to do now is just walk through some metrics and also some specifics about our calls for service. The board has seen these metrics before, the total crime severity index. So you're aware that we have seen an increase in total crime across Waterloo region in recent years. And this index is compiled by Statistics Canada. It offers us some points of comparison as to other regions across Ontario and also ultimately across the country. And we've seen a total increase in recent years of our total crime severity index. And also on the next slide speaks to our violent crime severity index. So these are incidents compiling this index, such as homicide, sexual assault, robberies, threats, and so on. And we've seen in Waterloo region a sustained and increasing violent crime severity index, which does play into our total service demands. And where this impacts our community is quite dramatic. This next slide shows us that in 2022, we saw some dramatic increases in violent crime in Waterloo region. So I can point to the number of shootings that we saw. In 2021, we had 16 shootings in our region. In 2022, we had 25 shootings. These are real firearms, real incidents, acts of brazen violence. And each one of these criminal investigations is ultimately a potential homicide waiting to happen. We also saw a total increase in our violent weapons violations. So those incidents where weapons are involved, our officers are seeing more guns on the streets, more knives, more stabbings, more total weapons violations overall. Our greatest concern is youth involved in fights and altercations and incidents in and around school-based altercations and so on, where weapons are being used and brought to altercations. And of grave concern is the total number of increases we've seen in robberies. So in 2022, we saw a total of 286 robberies in our region. We saw some dramatic increases, almost a doubling of pharmacy-related robberies. Those have happened in businesses, convenience stores, cell phone stores, and our total person-on-person robberies increased significantly as well. And what I'm going to do next is just show you some pretty dramatic footage from security cameras embedded in various stores, and it'll give you a snapshot of what these robberies actually look like. I will warn any casual observer that there are some dramatic footage that you're going to see to show the true impact on victims in our community. So what we've observed over the past couple of years, as I've mentioned to you, is brazen, organized, and violent robberies taking place across businesses, across communities, people using weapons, using guns, replica firearms, knives, and other weapons, in cell phone stores, in convenience stores, in other places of business such as pharmacies. And the security footage here not only shows the acts and how quickly these transpire, the organization of those involved in this type of criminal activity, but most importantly is the recognition is that the trauma, the impact upon the victims, the witnesses, those involved in businesses or just in the community is significant. And what we hear from our citizens is that the level of impact continues well beyond the incident itself. Each one of the numbers that we're providing today is one investigation, is one complex criminal investigation where we're doing everything we can from a crime suppression standpoint to deal with gang violence, with organized crime, with one-off altercations or acts of desperation. But we just want to highlight and show some visuals in terms of what these incidents actually look like in our community. Moving on to highlight another peak of major concern is we have probably one of the most progressive models of intimate partner violence, in all of Canada. We're very proud of the work that we've done with the Family Violence Project. But year over year, we see a sustained level of intimate partner violence. And really last year, we saw about 6,000 total intimate partner violence investigations addressed by our front line, and almost 1 out of 3 was transferred to our intimate partner violence unit, which is comprised of specialized detectives working in collaboration with community partners to address these cases. And what's most concerning is that last year we saw 6 total homicides in our region, but 5 of those 6 homicides were related to family violence and or intimate partner violence. So where we're seeing the worst outcome, the most tragic outcome in our community, it is often taking place in the home. So any work that we can do as a service and as a community to disrupt, to intervene, to provide supports and avenues of options for those facing family violence and intimate partner violence are crucial investments. And a lot of the crime severity index that I showed at the front end actually make up a lot of the violence in our community. Assaults, threats, criminal harassment, and other measures of the crime severity index actually relate back to intimate partner violence and sexual violence as well. We've spoken to the board before about the growth of the second neighborhood that we police, which is the online neighborhood. And so it's no question that we're seeing increases in online exploitation, in the effect of child pornography cases, luring cases, online extortion cases, and a growing trend across Waterloo region and across Canada right now are what are deemed sextortion cases, where intimate images are held against someone to leverage, usually for financial resources. And we're seeing these trends. These are new crimes, new trends in crime that are impacting members across our region and across Canada. And so the investments that we have are significant in terms of our cybercrime response. We work locally, provincially, nationally, and internationally to combat some of the online trends, but I can tell you that across Canada and across Ontario and locally, we are seeing an overwhelming amount of cybercrime investigations. And we shouldn't shy away from what child exploitation and what it really is. It's child sexual abuse that is captured, shared, and proliferated in the online universe. And so it's crucial that we not take our eyes off the crucial trauma and impact that this has locally and abroad. So we have a number of dedicated officers and civilians working in collaboration with private and public sector partners to combat this in the best way we can, but cybercrime remains a growing concern in our region. And one other area to highlight that is a part of our total service commitment is obviously road safety. In every year, the top concern from our citizens is something related to road safety. Every street, every neighborhood, and probably every area in our region deals with issues of traffic and road safety. And we work in close collaboration with our regional partners through the Safe Roadways program, focusing on smart urban design, smart innovation when it comes to how traffic flows with active transportation options, looking at automated speed enforcement. That will be the growth of how we combat this as a total community. But our officers and our members are seeing still a dramatic increase in what we call the fatal four offenses: speeding, distracted driving, and dangerous driving, failure to wear seatbelts, and also impaired driving charges. And as was highlighted previously, we continue to see incredible rate of criminal impaired driving on our roadways. That is alcohol-related impairment and also drug-related impairment. And in a vast, growing, busy region such as ours, we all see the effects of what aggressive driving looks like on our roadways and where it puts pedestrians, cyclists, and all of us, at risk when aggressive driving and all of the issues that I mentioned today, come to light. Last year, we saw 13 fatal collisions across Waterloo region and a total of 15 people who perished in these tragic collisions. And our officers laid over 21,000 total charges. These are our enforcement aims. We're doing everything we can from an enforcement standpoint to try to make the community aware of the impact of these trends. But road safety across our region remains a growing concern. So I highlight again the total calls for service, because what I've shown you to this point is just really a drop in the bucket of our total service demands. Every day, our communications center fields 800 to upwards of 1,000 calls a day. Citizens asking for our help to resolve problems in their lives, in their families, in their place of business, in their neighborhoods, and in our communities. And ultimately, the effect of our total service, I couldn't not be more proud of. Just to give you a snapshot, if we multiply this number of 324,000 occurrences just by 1, 2, or 3 times, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of interactions that our members, our 800 officers, are having every day in the community, and their civilian support provides as well. Last year and over the past 3 years, we've had a total of 136 public complaints a year. And about 80% of those public complaints are mediated through conversations and through an agreeable outcome. So the vast majority of our interactions are positive, they are productive, and we're delivering excellent service to the community. We report regularly on our use of force and our physical intervention with the public, and we have shown month over month that our total interactions with the public, 99.9% of interactions do not involve us using any application of force in the community. And we are totally transparent, accountable, and committed to a race-based data collection analysis for every interaction that we have with the community. So as I speak to our needs, our staffing needs, you have heard this before, but just to highlight that we have seen as our community has grown, a struggle for us to keep up with the service demands, and our service levels, have declined over time. So we know that these are just one metrics, but when we look at national, provincial, and Ontario-based rates, Waterloo Regional Police, from an officer to population ratio, remains below average, and there's room and opportunity for investments in this regard. And along that note, we have to have a profound commitment to the health and the wellness and the welfare of our members. We're doing everything we can to ensure that our members are healthy and safe and productive in their careers. We want to provide the best environment possible where they are then able to provide excellent service to the community. That is our commitment to our members, is also our commitment to our citizens. And so we are committed to our culture of equity, diversity, and inclusion, providing opportunities for us to grow, learn, and improve as a service. And also initiatives such as our Respect in the Workplace initiatives and constant work on our professionalism and our customer service and care for the community are commitments that we're very proud of and ongoing works in progress, that we're very, very committed to as a leadership team and as every member is as well. Just to highlight for those not aware, over the past 5 years, our service has conducted internally at least 45 projects focused on continuous improvement and efficiency. I won't dwell or go on to any of these, but we've provided regular reporting to the boards to show we are committed to becoming better, more efficient, more optimal, and innovative in everything that we undertake. When we come to you with a request for additional investments in service and personnel, we have to have done our homework, our business case. We're committed to continuous improvement and Lean Six Sigma approaches to process improvement, to optimizing our staffing, to civilianization. And we're happy to highlight any of the listed projects here in the board supplementary package, which will be coming to you in the coming weeks. We'll be highlighting some of these in more detail. And lastly, you are well aware of our commitment to modernization and innovation. The pandemic has provided us and the criminal justice system many opportunities to change, to evolve, to improve. And so we are seeing now a concerted and collaborative effort to digitize, to work on new processes that are across systems. And the board has received some recent reporting on our commitment to digital evidence management, our mobile phone strategy, which provides better service for investigators and better service to the community, and also our multi-year commitment to rolling out accountability mechanisms through body-worn cameras, in-car video, and also automated license plate recognition. These are just examples of some of the tools that we think are providing extra value to the community, extra efficiency and protection for our members, and also just better service and meeting all of our demands. The total call complexity that our officers are dealing with from a technological standpoint, the amount of digital data and evidence that exists in our investigations is immense. And also the criminal justice system demands for us to be efficient, to move our cases and our investigations through the criminal justice system in the most efficient way, are real issues that we continue to deal with as a collective, as a system, and we are committed to a total concerted effort to modernization. So that's some background in terms of the service demands that we're facing. I'll now move into a portion where we can speak to our budget recommendation. But I will highlight before doing that, just visually, to show that our WRPS staffing level over the last decade, has struggled to meet the demands of our growing population. So this chart just shows in an efficient way that, approximately 100,000 residents year over year have been added to our regional population over the past decade. And our total officer to population ratio has struggled to meet this demand. And we've had great conversations with the board over several years. I was trying to find a way to balance out our growth with regional growth that is consistent, that is balanced, that is responsible and predictable, to allow everyone a sense of how we grow as a service to meet the demands that we're facing, so that everyone can plan accordingly and we can meet the challenges of our everyday. So we are committed through the investments that were provided to us through the 2022 budget. The demands that I spoke of in terms of swells of violent crime, concerning trends over the past 5, 3, and several years in succession, have made our focus and our commitment into frontline patrol, the expansion of our emergency response unit, which adds extra safety, extra negotiation capacity to our frontline, commitments to our real-time operations center, our missing persons, cybercrime, child exploitation, major crime, break and enter, human source. So these are just some areas where we're supplementing several of our frontline resources into these specialized investigative areas to meet the specific demands that I've spoken about in the first portion of the presentation. Our request in the 2023 budget is to continue to try to meet the demands of our growing region. Our board has had a preview of a study that was conducted by KPMG throughout 2022, bridging into this year. Our service is still going through the analysis and the recommendations of what KPMG found, but I can verify publicly that the gap in our total service levels and staffing levels was confirmed by KPMG, and they've identified at least a current gap of 55 frontline officers that they recommend to meet issues of community growth, violent crime trends, workload pressures, and case clearance issues, also meeting community expectations and demands. So we will continue to unveil that information as it becomes refined and the recommendations become more clear. But I can tell you that our service priorities currently are as follows. We recommend and we are implementing a multi-year staff planning strategy to meet the demands that I've spoken about today. And also Deputy Hilton and all of her teams are committed to a crime suppression plan. At the highest priorities, we know that robberies, gun violence, and break and enters are our top priorities from a crime suppression standpoint. And we look forward to further reporting in terms of our progress and our efforts to combat violent crime in our region. And the last slide that I'll have before I turn it over to Ms. Kirsten Hand is to provide you with our ultimate recommendation for 2023. Our request to our board and our community is to invest in 19 additional frontline resources that we are committed to devoting to our frontline patrol, to investments in our intimate partner violence unit, our special victims unit, which comprises of our sexual assault unit, missing persons, human trafficking, and our youth-based investigators as well, and also some investments in the wellness, which will provide a benefit to our members. That is our ultimate recommendation in concert with the board's direction and conversations we've had in the last 2 months. We feel that this investment in 2023 will allow us to provide a stable, measured approach to increase and meet the demands of our service levels. And this is what we are recommending as part 1 of a 3-year plan expanding over the next 2 years. Our recommendation is to have a similar expansion of 18 frontline resources in 2024 and also 2025 to meet the gap that we have identified in this current landscape. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Kirsten Hand to walk you through several slides related to the budgetary impacts.
Thank you. So the proposed operating budget within the package today to support the 19 sworn officer expansion in 2023 recommends a proposed operating budget of $214 million. That is an increase over the previous year of 9.35%, or a change in the regional property tax levy of the police portion only of 7.22%. There is another option that's provided within the report that suggests a delayed intake or hiring of the 19 sworn officers to April 1st. That would reduce the budget ask by approximately $1 million and would reduce the percentage increase year over year to 8.81%, or a change in property taxes of 6.69%. I will note that it will have an annualization impact on the subsequent budget year, 2024, of approximately 0.5%. The other 2 forecasted years, based upon full year assumptions of the additions of the FTEs, are also noted in the report, with 2024 estimating an increase of 6.3% and 2025 of 4.8%. Thank you. Next slide. The items that is driven the budget increase from 2022 include the annualization of the 35 sworn positions that were added in 2022, the 19 sworn officer additions that are factored into the 2023 budget. 2023 budget request before you today. We are seeing some benefit cost increases, specifically in our WSIB medical and dental areas, contractual increases as a result of our collective agreement, which includes COLA, frontline premium, phased-in increases. We have reduced the salary vacancy target, and we also have removed the one-time funding from the 2022 budget, which included utilizing prior year operating budget surpluses and the benefit stabilization reserve. We continue to focus on increasing our capital reserve contributions to support our capital program, as well as seeing inflationary impacts on items such as gasoline. Next slide, please. From a capital perspective, we are requesting 31 million in 2023. That doesn't include, it does include a 2022 budget carry forward. The 10-year capital forecast did not change from the numbers that were presented to you last month, so it equals approximately $189 million. The only items that changed from last month is just the reprofiling of one of our projects to push monies into 2024 from 2023. Some of the major projects that we're looking to accomplish in 2023 include the move into our new central division in the springtime, the commencement of design work associated with our communication, the regional communication center, some information technology projects such as the commencement of the human resource information system project, next generation 911 for the comm center as mandated by CRTC, as well as life cycle replacement of our equipment and fleet and facility enhancements. Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsten. So there's only a couple of slides remaining. Today we're before you seeking recommendation and direction, ultimately with our hope that our recommendation will be adopted. We anticipate there will be dialogue and questions. Beyond today, we are focused on providing a presentation, Kirsten and I, to Regional Council on February 1st. And so portions of today's presentation will be provided on that date with some enhancements as well. But I do just want to spend a couple minutes just concluding, providing some concluding remarks. And we do want to thank again the board for your governance and your direction in shaping our priorities and our commitments. And we know that making recommendations such as this are considerable investments in our community, and we do not make these recommendations lightly. We have a shared obligation to provide adequate and effective service to the residents of Waterloo region, and our team sees no shortage of challenges, and I've highlighted many of those challenges today. But I do want to reinforce that our team also sees nothing but opportunity as well. We see opportunity to grow as professionals, as an organization, to be more responsive to the needs of our citizens, and to use more smart and innovative approaches to address and to solve crime. We also see opportunity in addressing the needs of those most vulnerable around us, those who we serve with care, compassion, and respect every day, and to collaborate with our partners across the community to address the needs of victims and survivors of crime who are seeking restoration and healing. We also see opportunities to build a more equitable, just, and compassionate Waterloo region. And there's no doubt about it, our service as a public service, as emergency service, we're very complex. We do operate 24/7. And in doing so, Deputy Chief Hilton and I, and really our entire leadership team, could not be more proud of the work that our members do around the clock. We are one of the most fastest growing and rapidly diversifying communities in Canada, and we are feeling the effects of the growth that we have seen. And to meet the needs of today and tomorrow, we require smart and bold investments. But these investments we're requesting are laden with full transparency and accountability and our commitment to excellence at every turn. But to meet the demands, my appeal to our communities that we can't do it alone. We have said many times as a service that we cannot solely police our way out of the challenges that we are facing. We need the help of our community. And every day, Chair Redmond has mentioned that all residents of Waterloo our vision and our mission is that all residents are safe and that they feel safe. And we expect that there will be those listening today and digesting our recommendations that will question and that will challenge our proposed investments. And we anticipate that some voices will undoubtedly insist that the police don't prevent crime, that the evidence doesn't support that further investments in policing may solve the concerning trends of violent crime that I've highlighted today. And I do want to address this narrative head on. I do want to address it because I believe it is based on a premise that is entirely false. The investments in public safety that we are seeking through this board are necessary to address the growing violence, victimization, weaponization, and the injustice that our members are grappling with every day in providing service to our community. It is our citizens that are asking for our help, and we require additional support to provide the level of service that is being demanded of us. And for those strong voices across our community that insist that we must address the root causes of crime by increasing deeply in affordable and supportive housing, homelessness, the alleviation of poverty, mental health services, addiction services, education, food security, and so on, we couldn't agree more. We emphatically support all those solutions and those investments that will improve the health and wellness of our society. We are all working towards a day when we can move away from reactive and responsive modes, a day when we can have a wide range of community solutions that are potentially police-free and that are collaborative. We are not there yet as a society, and respectfully, this is not an either-or proposition. We need strong investments in both policing and social services to address the root causes of crime and to improve our total community health. We are inviting every citizen, every leader, every organization to collaborate with us, to learn about our work, to learn about our members, the people who are serving every day and serving our community with pride and success. And our doors are open. We've said many times we're at the table seeking to work together on real evidence-driven community solutions and safety programming. We welcome the criticisms, we welcome the challenges, most of all, we welcome the viable community solutions that will make our region a healthier, safer place for all. We know that through partnership and collaboration across sectors and across systems, we can enact measurable and attainable made in Waterloo Region solutions that will build a brighter today and a brighter tomorrow. Our members know that we can and we will do this work together. That is the summary of our presentation, Chair Redmond and members of the board. We look forward to questions and dialogue and a bridge to the next step in the budget process. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. And at the end of this discussion, we'll be looking at a motion of what our budget should look like. I've got a list of speakers. We'll start with Tony. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to commend the chief and the rest of the leadership group at the service for putting forward a great presentation and budget. I have two comments or questions. The first one is in relative to the recommendations put forward. I've seen in your presentation and through the board package the multi-year investment in attracting an increase in complement of FTEs of 18 for 2024 and another 18 in 2025. But within the actual board recommendation and motion, I do not see it in there. I see it as solely a recommendation around the actual budget for 2023. I believe that it's an integral part of the strategy to address the challenges that our community and our services is facing, that we have this hiring over multiple years. And my comment is, why was it left out of the actual motion? Because I would think it should be well within the motion itself. Maybe that's just my vantage on it.
Who would like to answer that? Chief or Kirsten? Chief?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think we're presenting to know what we know has happened in the past and what we know we're facing today. So some of the metrics that drive our service demands do have a lag based on the violent crime statistics and how they're compiled. And although we are fully committed and fully confident in what we've provided in a multi-year staffing strategy, and we would welcome approvals in future years, I think it's a responsible commitment from our service and our leadership team is to come back to you next year to ensure that what we're proposing today is accurate for the future investments down the road. We know that some jurisdictions do entertain multi-year approvals, and we would welcome that conversation should it ever come to this jurisdiction. There's pros and cons to that landscape and that approach. But today we're seeking what we know and what we're requesting for 2023, and really at the board level, at the regional level, that may be a further conversation for another day.
Okay, my second comment maybe or thought evolves around two things. The first is as we direct this new complement or increased complement towards some of the initiatives, as you said, intimate partner violence, frontline patrols, etc. It would be great as we move forward if you could think about how to articulate how we are doing relative to those areas of or challenges within our community and in our service, and how we're doing based on our strategy. And the last part is as well, I look forward to some articulation and outline of a strategy around hiring. As an individual within this community that has a company, hiring is very challenging. So I'm not looking for an answer now, but hopefully yourself and the rest of the leadership can bring forward to the board some clearly articulated strategy on how we are going to hire 19 people, 19 officers or 19 FTEs over the next year. So those are my two thoughts, or what I would like to see as we go forward.
So Chief, I take that as a future agenda item?
It will be, yeah.
Okay.
We are fully organized and look forward to coming back to the board on the crime trend and our response, crime suppression efforts, but also the uniform recruiting efforts. We are organized and mobilized as a leadership team and as an organization. And it's our commitment to come back on a recurring basis to provide updates.
And I do appreciate that crime severity, it's not driven by the number of officers. It's, we need the number of officers to address the challenges that our community is facing. So it's, I just want to make that known to you as well, Chief. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Schnarr.
Thank you so much, Chair Redmond. I echo Tony. I would note, and I took the Chief's comment related to multi-year funding. I would note Hamilton just approved or has recommended 13 new officers yearly until 2030. So taking sort of that multi-year, 13, until we get, so thinking through what that looks like, and it may be something that we deal with next year, but thinking of it as a continuum to bring us to the numbers. I just wanted to contextualize just the measured approach that I think the Chief and the service is recommending to us. Certainly it echoes what we heard from Mr. Eagers earlier on, but Durham is recommending 30 new officers. Peel is recommending 70 sworn officers plus 50 civilian. London 20, Halton 20, Toronto 200. So I think the request here for Waterloo region, certainly I would think we were quite similar. We've seen in other presentations to Durham, Peel, London, Halton, I think is a very measured and reasonable approach, recommending, noting some of the increasing challenges that we're having in our community. So just a bit of context across the province in terms of where this recommendation and request lines up with other peer municipalities in Ontario.
Thank you for that. Ian, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Redmond. I just note in the presentation and in the materials that we read before, the calls for service chart is pretty illuminating, and we've seen in the too many are in red, which means we're not getting to as many as we need to, and that's a function of I think staffing levels. 324,000 calls for service. It's growing every year. I take President Eagers' comments to heart in terms of the urgency of increasing this. And I think that's why we started last year with saying we need to make an investment. So I guess the reality is what's possible this year. Dr. Redmond or Dr. Schnarr just gave some stats there. But I guess I had the same concern, I think, as Mr. Giovinazzo. The plan for approval is, as far as I'm concerned, what we've looked at is a multi-year plan. And so while we're approving a one-year budget, maybe much akin to what Hamilton's doing is, I think it should be very clear that what certainly from my perspective, and I don't know if we need to change the recommendation, is that this is part of a plan that we as a board have said 19 plus 18 plus 18 is where we need to be. The timing of whether we can get it all done in that window of time is I guess an open question. So that's one thing, and I guess maybe more for my colleagues. I think that's an important thing that everyone is clear that this is not 19 and it's not kind of in a vacuum. It's part of a larger narrative which we started last year, and we need to continue on. So that's one. I think the other part is for the chief, and I think we've said this, and I think you're aware of it. But I'll give you the opportunity to publicly say it yet again. What we're going to be looking for is what's the plan. So if we say 19, you've got your senior management team and yourself. What are the things you're going to do to actually deliver on that, to make sure that we can recruit in a very competitive landscape? So I think on a monthly basis, you're going to get a familiar question, which is, hey, how are we doing about recruiting, and what's the next class look like? Because the important part is not approving the number, it's actually getting the hiring done. You know that. So I just wanted to put that. I think that should be a staple of, here's where we are, here's the progress, here's the challenges we face, because that is what the community is going to expect if we make this investment in a very difficult budget year.
Chief, do you want to respond to any of that, or are you just?
Other than just confirming our commitment and also confirming the urgency, and I can tell you that our team is very much aligned to this. So I'll look forward to coming back to the board to provide you the details in terms of what we have underway from a process standpoint, a planning standpoint, and there'll be multi-year approach to how we will combat the issues of recruiting the next generation of our members. But also just highlight that we've committed to an experienced officer program to welcome officers who may be attracted to come to Waterloo region, also live in our region and work for other services. And this is, we're not looking to steal from other services. We're looking to equal the playing field that already exists, and looking that professionals have mobility. And that is also a commitment that we've extended very publicly, is to welcome existing police professionals to our organization. So thank you.
Thank you. Sandy, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you, Chief. I think you've articulated the need for additional officers very well, and I don't like to sort of parse out our stats by community, but Mr. Eagers did comment on the assignment to the rural areas, and so I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about how the rural area has been serviced and how we're looking to or how we can improve that through this particular budget.
Thanks, Mayor Shantz. And you now have a rural counterpart who's joined the board as well as a resident. So we know that the rural questions will be fast and furious moving forward. So I can say that the KPMG analysis that we look forward to continuing to digest and report on has highlighted this rural commitment from a service level standpoint. So there are some recommendations looking from a deployment and leadership standpoint and how we allocate and deploy. So I might hold back on some of the specifics today until our leadership team fully can digest what the model looks like moving forward. But as was highlighted earlier today and in previous conversations, is we are seeing considerable growth in our rural townships, and we're seeing residents come to this region attracted by all that we have to offer. And, those are quickly becoming, viable, cityscapes within dotted across the rural landscape of Waterloo region. And so we're looking at how we deploy, also how we provide opportunities for our officers to provide visibility through walkability, through rural station opportunities, so that whether that's storefronts, whether that's community centers, whether that's fire services or paramedic facilities, where we can have some regular touch points for touch points with the community and also to do the work that we do. What we know for sure is that when I showed the road safety statistics, some of the most tragic road safety occurrences that we have take place on our rural roadways are fatalities, are aggressive driving or speeding, and those tragic outcomes that lead to serious injuries and also fatalities are often occurring in our rural roadways. So our commitment moving forward is really developing a comprehensive plan, building upon the work that we've done in previous years to ensure that you as a rural governor and also every resident in our region is requiring equal and excellent service. And we still have some work to do to refine exactly what that looks like in 2023 and beyond.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. Doug, go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. No, Madam Chair, just want to thank the chief very much. I thought the presentation visually was excellent and it's understandable. And I think it really points out the board's concerns about the next number of years. So I just want to thank him and I look forward to him when he comes to the and his staff when they come to the council table. I'm totally supportive of where this is going. And Madam Chair, I've got to leave the meeting because I have to get up to the other meeting in the region. So
Don't speed.
I won't be. No. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for those comments. Karen Quigley Hobbs, did you want to weigh in with any comments or observations?
Just again to thank the chief for the for me it's an orientation and a budget presentation. It's was really well done. I think we all totally support and understand the perspective that's being communicated in the budget presentation. And I again thank you.
Thank you very much. Ian, I see you have your hand up. I have a couple questions too, but you go ahead.
No, through you, Chair Redmond, go ahead. I'm ready to move the motion. I just wanted to add one comment at the appropriate time.
Super. Okay. I thought you might be ready to move. So there's two issues, Chief, that I would ask you and maybe Kirsten to weigh in on. One is what I heard you saying about the multi-year plan, and I totally appreciate the fact that there's a context within which we're dealing, and that can be the narrative. Is it helpful to put that in the motion? Because I would have to say to you, what I heard you saying was that a lot of things could change. And while this is a path and the trajectory that we feel is reasonable at this point in time, things could change. And I mean, it's not etched in stone. And I recognize that every year the WRPS board will grapple with what the right number is for that year. And also, can you talk about, I have to say the call diversion and the differentiated staffing, I think, is a real cornerstone of how progressive and innovative this service is. Can you talk just a little bit about how the decisions are made about whether or not it's frontline uniform staff is and when we make a decision that it would be civilianized increase in staff? Because I think that's really important, that people somehow think that you move the line in a very arbitrary way. And I know the decision making is a lot more thoughtful than that. And I think that's a really important piece of looking at how we go forward.
Thanks, Chair Redmond. On the multi-year budgeting plan, I mean, all roads have led to our staff planning and also our budget planning. So I would say that our leadership team is quite content with what we've outlaid for, say, the next proposal for 3 years. There are items that can change. There are certainly on the capital planning side some still work to do to update and refine our capital planning. But on the operational landscape, I do believe we are content with what we're proposing today. It also is in line with what Dr. Schnarr mentioned from other areas, other jurisdictions that are looking at. This goes back to our conversation about smoothing and predictability, and also allowing us to align our planning and our programming and our training and so on to sync, so that we're we're really working well as a service to meet our internal demands. So I might have to take some direction from you and the board in terms of what your comfort is in committing beyond the 2023 motion. So that could be entertained today or beyond. But to your second question about, we ask for frontline resources to meet the growing pressing needs, but we've also built in a civilian staffing component, which I mentioned earlier about our commitment to continuous improvement. And so it's contingent upon us to always be looking at opportunities for civilianization, also opportunities for adapting our internal resources for civilian support priorities and how we allocate. So moving forward, as we hopefully can adopt this year's position, we would have a commitment to come back to the board and really maybe just give you a fuller picture in terms of our total staffing service wide. So that when we're making decisions from a staff planning standpoint, where we're allocating members to different areas around the service from a civilian support standpoint, you have an eye in terms of how we're looking at that innovation. And I know you trust us to make those operational decisions. But when we're looking at transitioning or investing in areas such as communications, information technology, or administrative support areas to supplement some of the digital disclosure commitments that we've made, we're happy to provide those opportunities to the board to see the decision-making and the process behind the scenes.
Thank you very much. So Ian, I have Tony as well. Do you want to go next or should I let Tony go? Say Tony and then Ian. Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, and it may impact what Ian's going to move forward on the motion. Hearing what the chief just said, when I think back and I look at, the crime severity, I look at the indexes around, the number of officers per 100,000 based on also weighted crime severity of other regions as well. Taking all that into account, I think we're challenged to address some of these issues that we're facing on crime severity in a one-year plan. I think we need to have a lot higher complement than 19 officers. And I feel like you've got one arm tied behind your back unless you have an approval of maybe a multi-year of how many officers to facilitate you to address these issues and to look at strategies on how you can address the various crimes that we're facing or safety issues that we're facing in our community, but also from our service, right, for their well-being and their safety. So I'm personally leaning towards having a multi-year complement part of the motion at this point in time, because I don't want it to be lost, because I think that's part and parcel of your overall strategy is to have those further hires. So I'm comfortable to amend the motion that's been presented in the board package to have at least the 24 and 25 complements. But that's me. So
are you proposing that Ian pass the motion? You're proposing an amendment to include the stats for 24 and 25.
The motion I guess hasn't been made yet for the actual what we're recommending, but when I look at the board recommendation, I would lean towards including the recommendations for the complements for 24 and 25. That's my suggestion.
So are you moving that motion as amended then, Tony?
Sure, I would move that motion as amended, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to Ian and then to Sandy.
Okay, so I was going to move the motion with exactly that in that. I think as whatever the wording is, but something akin to as part of our multi-year plan for increase in sworn officers of 55 over 23, 24, and 25, the board approves the recommended budget, including the expansion of 19 sworn officers for this year. So this is no different than we do pass a capital budget, and it is a 10-year window, but the only one that's really passed is this year's current budget. The rest of them get recast over time. But I do think it's important that we do have that in there that says that is our plan. Plans can change. I highly doubt that it's going to go down, but it potentially could go down or it could go up based on circumstances. But I do think that for planning purposes, both the administration, the public knows that we're on a path to get us to an appropriate level of sworn officers and folks on the ground to deliver on the programs that the chief highlighted, but also to recognize population is going to increase. So that's what I would recommend is if we, I think it still includes a budget approval next year, but we should be signaling within this that this is part of a 3-year plan.
Okay, Tony, do you like the wording that Ian suggested? Is that consistent with what your motion would have sounded like?
Yeah, I would be agreeable to that.
Okay, thank you. Sandy, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't have any objection to the motion at all. I think having a plan, because it is part of a plan, is a good thing. But for clarity, the chart that's included in the report shows operating budgets for 24 and 25. Does that simply reflect increase in staffing, or is there something else sort of baked into that? And if that's already been said, my apologies, I don't remember.
Okay, should we go to Kirsten, Chief, for that clarification? Kirsten?
Please, yeah.
Yes, you are correct. Other items would be factored into the future year operating budget. So information such as salary increases, phased in frontline premiums, expected increases to benefit rates, annualization of our central division, forecasted debt servicing costs. There's a number of items that we have forecasted out into the future years.
So those are included in those numbers.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to look for a little help here. And Kathy, do you have the wording? Okay, so just to read back before, so the motion is that the Waterloo Regional Police Services Board approve the Waterloo Regional Police Services 2023 operating budget net levy of $214,600,266, and that the Waterloo Regional Police Services approve the 10-year capital forecast 2023 to 2032, Appendix G. And I'm looking for wording that captures. Ian, can you give us the wording that you had for the?
Yeah, through you, Chair. I think it just start right at the beginning, as they say, as part of our multi-year plan for increase in sworn officers of 55 over 22, 23, and 20, or whatever, sorry, 23, 24, 25, and then the rest of the motion. I think it just sets the table that this is a 3-year plan. And to Mayor Shantz's question, we still have to approve next year's budget, but it's signaling that that's going to be baked into the budget process for next year.
Are we clear on that? Sandy, go ahead.
Yeah, just for clarity, I think you misread the number, and just for clarity, 214,060,266. I think I got that right.
Okay. Apologies. I thought that's what I read, but maybe not. It's lots. So we have clarification. I see no other questions or comments. So I'm going to call the question. It has been moved by Tony, seconded by Ian, wordsmith by Ian. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay, that is carried, colleagues. Thank you. And again, thank you to senior leadership and all of the hard work that's gone into this for making this a very clear path forward and very understandable. Very much appreciated. Monthly Chief of Police report. Chief Kroll, over to you.
Thanks, Chair Redmond. And thank you for your collaboration on that. It's very much appreciated. I'm very happy to provide a number of items just in closing today. I won't be long, but just want to obviously wish everyone a happy new year. I know it's the 18th, but kicking off 2023 for all of our members and our board and the community, important to signify that. And so we rang in the new year in our festive ride program, and want to highlight with you some of the statistics of our members who, through the course of November, December, and into January, were out in the community at various locations conducting our ride check program. And in total, we stopped and checked over 6,400 vehicles across the region. We had 88 road screening devices administered. some 5 drug screening devices administered, and we had 12 people used or issued a 3-day roadside suspension, 42 provincial tickets issued, and 5 people charged with impaired driving. And we saw a dramatic increase in December of impaired driving across Waterloo region. 105 impaired driving charges were laid, compared to only 59 in December of 2021. And so last year in 2022, as I highlighted, we saw a total of 911 impaired driving charges laid across our region. Just want to highlight, moving on from the RIDE program, just a couple incidents that occurred on the front lines. A pretty dramatic incident in Cambridge where we had officers respond to someone who actually broke through the wall of an adjacent home in attempting to assault a female resident, and our officers responded, made the arrest, but in the course of doing so, they were assaulted, and 2 officers actually sustained broken fingers in dealing with a very volatile individual and a pretty frightening encounter. And 1 individual was charged with several offenses and held in custody for hearing, but just highlights some of the dynamic incidents that our officers do respond to. There's also a very brave and heroic response. Our officers in Cambridge, somebody was in distress threatening to jump from a bridge in downtown Cambridge. Officers from South Division Patrol located the individual standing on the ledge, engaged them in thoughtful conversation and negotiation them back over the railing. This happens more often than you might think. Our officers are responding to these individuals in distress, and just great work in responding to those in need in a challenging and dynamic call. And also just want to highlight, again, an incident occurred 2 days ago in Cambridge where we had a stolen vehicle located in the Galt area. Vehicle fled, was evading police, and a short distance away, the driver drove over a median and then intentionally struck a police cruiser who was attempting to block the roadway. And thankfully, no injuries were sustained to the officer. And ultimately, a 21-year-old male was charged with theft of a motor vehicle, flight from police, and dangerous operation, and so on. But just highlighting some of the dynamic frontline response measures that are taking place every day. And Deputy Hilton and I and our team are so proud of our officers. As our board knows, we welcomed 7 new uniform officers at the start of the month in the Waterloo Memorial Recreation Complex. It was a proud day to welcome those 7 new frontline officers. Happy to bring back the polar plunge. So on March 4th of this year, in recognition of our commitment to the Special Olympics, we'll be bringing back the full-scale polar plunge. This is an opportunity for our service members, members of our community groups, maybe some board members who want to take the plunge with us into icy cold water, raising funds for the Special Olympics. This will take place at our Children's Safety Village on our headquarters facility, and we encourage all those who might want to participate for this great cause to join us, and we'll be issuing recurring challenges as we get closer. And just a couple closing items. For those of you who are unaware, that WRPS is celebrating our 50th anniversary in 2023. So we will be rolling out a number of signature events. And right now we're launching a campaign called What Does Policing Mean to You contest. So we're encouraging young members of our community aged 4 to 10 to create art, to depict what policing means to them, to inspire us in the work that we do to celebrate the milestones of 50 years in policing. And we look forward to sharing those with our community as they roll in. And just have to note that we're not far away from February, Black History Month. So Ms. Geraldine Stafford and the entire Equity, Diversity, Inclusion team has rolled out a really exciting and comprehensive commitment to Black history, celebrating both within policing and within our community. And she will be rolling out items such as Black History Month book club in partnership with the City of Cambridge, some generational recognition of our members and their commitment through excellence in police service, and also some partnerships with the KW Titans basketball team with their home opener, where we'll be kicking off their season in collaboration and recognition of Black History Month. So we are very excited about that rolling out. And in my closing comments, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize Deputy Chief Shirley Hilton, who has recently announced her retirement. And we have few months left to celebrate her and to recognize her incredible career achievements. So a long way from saying goodbye, but just want to recognize Shirley, her incredible leadership and what she's provided to our community, and look forward to celebrating her in the months to come. So thank you very much to the board and for your commitment to our service in our community, and look forward to a prosperous 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. If I can just join in the praise of Deputy Hilton, and I know she hates this more than anything, but having been able to work with her very directly on the vaccine rollout, she has provided such expansive leadership and always champion women in a way that is strong and positive and reinforcing. So surely you will be missed, but you have so much to be proud of, and I know that we'll continue to embarrass you over the next several months. I just wanted to add a note that some colleagues know, but probably not everyone. This past weekend alone, I saw the chief and Geraldine Stafford at the Armenian Community Center, and then at the Tamil Cultural Association celebration. That was a Friday and a Saturday night. So this police service demonstrates and shows all the time how invested they are in the diversity of our community, the helps celebrate the cultural celebrations of different segments of the community. And I think that's very much appreciated by the community. Colleagues, I don't see new business. I don't see future business items, but just for information, I do want to acknowledge that Megan Martin has joined us as the executive assistant. We've already given a shout out to Kathy Emphrey, but I also want to compliment Holly Kentz, who joins us every police services board to make sure that we're on YouTube, that we are accessible, and we borrow her from the region's clerk's department. So Holly, I really want to thank you for making sure that when everybody freezes, we figure it out, and we continue to make sure that the public has the fullest access they can to all of this important work. So I see, Ian, I think that's a clapping hand, right? I have no more information items. I would just note that once we're adjourned, members of the media are welcome to stay logged into the Zoom with the details that were provided. Chief Kroll will be here available to take questions, and Sherry Greeno will be here to quarterback that process. And I would now entertain a motion to adjourn. You're not frozen, are you? Okay, moved by Ian, seconded by Sandy. All those in favor?